Yes, guys, welcome to the Fantasy Football Fix Game Week 26 live stream. My name is FPL Nacho, and in this live stream, we are going to be discussing everything to do with wildcards. I know a lot of you out there have decided to activate it this game week, so this is going to be super relevant to you during this live stream. And of course, if you haven't activated your wildcard, then there's still going to be so much to talk about in this video regarding captaincy, players that you should be targeting, players to avoid, and of course those projected points over the next 3 game weeks. 3 or 4 game weeks, it is worth noting. So first and foremost, guys, let me know if you're in the chat. It'd be great to see some of the usuals in there. I can see Monkey Man in there, Cheekster, Yusuf. Hope you guys are doing all very well. If you can, drop a like on the live stream, it'd be much appreciated, just to get it out there for those that are unaware that we are live right now for probably just under half an hour. No, that's a quick one. Just under an hour or so of this live stream. And importantly, it's a fantastic opportunity for any of you guys who have any questions to drop them in the live chat, and I'll be answering them throughout the live stream. It won't be one of those where I wait until the very end to answer your question. I think it's really relevant. I know everyone lives busy lives, that you can drop any questions you have and I'll answer them as we go on. We will stick to some sort of format though. As always, I do go off on a tangent, but I will try and keep it quite concise and cover some of the major topics. So we're going to look at my current wildcard draft. I feel like I'm 80% there. We're going to discuss the Brighton midfielders. I think that's a real interesting debate right now. Then we'll come on to some differentials, those that I really do think are worth considering for our teams, in particular those that are maybe chasing a little bit of rank. And then, of course, we're going to be looking at a few other important topics like the projected points. And a quick discussion on captaincy is, I really think it's more of a case of us having a live conversation on captaincy, as I think there's 3 very clear choices, maybe 2, some would say. So it'll be really good when we get to that section for me to get a poll up on the live chat and we can discuss that as the live stream continues. So it'll be really good if we have an interactive one this game week, because I feel like it is such an important one for our seasons. Cheeks are all aboard the wildcard train. Yes, I think a lot of people are going to be in that situation right now. You saying I bought Mbuemo. Is that good? Mbuemo is definitely one that I think a lot of managers are going to overlook. The natural temptation is going to be Ivan Toney because of the underlying stats, being a penalty taker, and naturally Brighton's main threat from goal scoring positions. But if you can't afford Ivan Toney, I do think that we are in a position where Mbuemo can be considered for your teams. And Paul saying, even Nacho, who's the best goalkeeper, Sanchez or Raya moving forward? Now, Paul, it's a really good question because we are going to come on to later on in regards to goalkeeper rotations. But what I would say about the situation with Sanchez and Raya is this. I think based on an FPL asset, Raya is the better choice. We've seen that from his point scoring. He has so many more avenues to points because Brentford naturally concede more shots. So he accumulates more saves, naturally meaning that even if he does concede, he may pick up a few points for save points. And naturally, if he does pick up a clean sheet, he is right in and amongst it for bonus points because of him accumulating these saves. Now, the good thing about Sanchez is that if you're doing the strategy where you wildcard in game week 26 and then you don't free hit in game week 28, you're selecting a goalkeeper in Sanchez who, obviously, in game week 28, doesn't have a fixture. Now, because of that reason, it means that you can select an outfield player that does have a fixture in game week 28. So, for example, you could have a combination of Sanchez in goal and then a Brentford defender. That works really well for you. If you were to go the opposite route and play Raya in goal and then pick your Brighton defender, it means that you've got an outfield player that blanks. Now, why is that a problem? Because you have to bench a goalkeeper either way. So if you go down the route of having Sanchez as your goalkeeper, it means that you can just bench him and then have 10 other outfield players. So I hope that makes sense. We're going to come on to a bit more discussion about combinations later on in the live stream, but basically on the face of it, Raya is the better FPL option. Sanchez probably covers you better for game week 28 as you can have an outfield player that is a Brentford defender that helps you off. Cheeky saying, what are the benefits of holding off using the wildcard chip in game week 26? Cheeky says, it's another really good point there. I think those that are listening right now in regards to debating their wildcard chip, it isn't for everyone, it is worth noting. If you're sat there right now with a couple of Brentford assets, a couple of Brighton assets, even the likes of Harry Kane, then I don't think the wildcard is necessarily a massive pool for you. I think you could definitely hold off using it. Take myself, for example. I had triple Liverpool, and I think there is an argument to say that they could get some joy out of Man United in game week 27, game week 26, and then they also have Bournemouth away in game week 27. So I do think there is going to be some benefits to you holding on to those Liverpool assets over the coming game weeks. But if you're sat there with no Brighton, no Brentford, triple Liverpool, Nketiah, Patterson, Bueno, then I think the wildcard is just really necessary for you in your teams in particular. Just discussing in regards to press conferences, because I quickly want to cover that one off before we get deep diving into the live stream, because I think there's some notable kind of news coming up that is worth noting about some injuries, some players that are doubts. Chris, hope you're doing well. Good evening. Calm too. Just make sure there are people in the chat there. Right, so some notable players. Nketiah is a doubt for game week 26. So if you were hoping to potentially, not use your wild card, play in game week 26, Nketiah, he is a doubt. And because of that very reason, I would expect to see a front three of Martinelli, Trossard and Saka once again. So if you do have Nketiah, be very cautious about that. Nketiah missing out is good news for Martinelli. I think Trossard playing as a number 9 is better for him because he does play that false 9, similar to what Gabriel Jesus does, meaning that Martinelli gets beyond the back line. When Nketiah plays, he is very much central to this Arsenal attack, is sometimes the highest player, meaning there's less space and a deeper line for the likes of Saka and Martinelli to run beyond. I think Trossard playing the number 9 is better for Martinelli, and why Martinelli needs to be consideration in our wildcard teams. And Arteta has come out and said Gabriel Jesus is progressing well, and I would expect him to be back in that Arsenal squad sooner rather than later. So if you have Nketiah, it definitely is time to bin him off. Brighton, Estupiñán and March have been confirmed fit for game week 26. So if you are considering them, they need to be on your radar as they are likely to be playing in game week 26 and beyond. Reece James, massive doubt for game week 26. I had a draft where I had Reece James in that draft. I can't be considering him now off the back of that news. And Mason Mount as well is likely out for game week 26, but I don't think many people were considering him in their drafts. Last up, Ivan Toney. There's absolutely no clarification in regards to the ban, but what we've seen from the press conference, there's nothing been said that he is going to be missing in game week 26. So for that very reason, I think we just bring him into our teams if you do plan on wildcarding. And if you are intending on maybe moving to him as a free transfer, I still think it is more than a viable move for your transfer. So that's kind of the main conclusion on the press conferences. I don't think there's any other notable players that have come out and had any potential injury doubts. But Nketiah potentially out, James potentially out, Mason Mount out, and Estupiñán and March are confirmed fit in there. Harry's saying Nunes or Felix to start. I wish I didn't have either, but I have to start one. You know what? I can't really back the Chelsea attack right now, so I probably would say Nunes, to be honest with you. I think Chelsea really struggling for goals right now. Rio saying, hi Nacho, I have one slot for a defender in a wildcard. Which defender do you think I would choose? James, Botman, me, or Castagne? Well, James has been ruled out, so I wouldn't go for James. Ben Mee, it depends if you have Riot in goal already. If you have no Brentford coverage, then I do like Ben Mee. But I would also say to you, do you want to go for maybe Pinnock or Rico Henry at 0.5 million cheaper? I think they're just as good options. Botman, I really do like alongside Trippier to cover you off in blank game week 28. Castagne, not really someone I have considered just because I don't rate the Leicester defence personally. So realistically, I think Mee is a priority if you don't have Brentford coverage at all defensively. Otherwise, Botman is a good move. And Jordan saying Emerson Royale as a differential. Don't mind it, but are we investing in the Tottenham defence right now? I'm not really that tempted, especially with Fraser Forster in goal right now. Yes, Spurs have kept a couple of clean sheets. It is worth noting. But with no doubles coming up, I much prefer the other defenders in teams that actually double later down the line. And here, one here from Engine Iceman saying Trippier, Burn, Mings, Mee, White. Good defences. Don't mind it at all. Botman versus Burn, definitely an argument there, but I don't really think there's going to be much rotation between the two. Mings, absolutely fine. We are expecting Carlos Silva to return, but I don't know whether that displaces Mings in the team. Mee and White, absolutely fine. One would argue that maybe Zinchenko and Gabriel are more secure than Ben White, but realistically, I think Arteta remains with the same team that he has over the recent game weeks, and Ben White is in that best 11. And again, regarding Castagne, I don't really rate him personally because I don't rate the Leicester defence. It is worth acknowledging there. Right, let's move on to my current Game Week 26 wildcard team, as I know that's probably why a lot of you are tuning in right now, and I'm going to cover off exactly why I have selected these players and the ones that are still up for debate. Okay, so here's how the current wildcard draft is looking. And no, I get it. All of the drafts are looking very, very similar. But end of the day, when we are in a situation where a lot of content creators, FPL managers, wildcard at the same time, realistically, I think you are just kind of scraping the barrel if you are thinking to yourself, oh, I'm going to be really different and go for a player that nobody else is talking about. Naturally, players that everybody is talking about is a good thing because they are the better picks. The reason why everybody is talking about Arsenal defender, Brentford defender, Brighton defenders is because they are just simply the better picks. So that's why a lot of the wildcard drafts are looking the same. I personally am not fussed about it at all. I do think that the FPL community is still such a small bubble in comparison to the whole active managers. So I think just having the combination of these players is going to be differential enough with you wildcarding this game week. So going to quickly reel off my decisions here and the players that are definitely locked into my team. So first up, Kepa, a player that is absolutely locked in my team. I've had him since the restart and I've accumulated value in him. Do I like the Chelsea defence? Not really, but I do personally think that he is still a good option going forward. And importantly, covers you really well in the blank game week 28 where he's at home against Everton. Don't really like the game week 29 fixture where Chelsea are at home against both Aston Villa and Liverpool in a double, but Chelsea defensively are still posting okay numbers, so I'm happy to stick with him. I think I've accumulated some good value in him, and I don't really think I need to move away from him. The other goalkeeper is going to be Raya as we speak. This one isn't actually locked, but it is all but locked. I like the Kepa plus Raya combination going forward. Realistically, in this game week, I probably would go for Kepa as my goalkeeper at home against Leeds. In game week 27, I would go for Raya because he has a double. In game week 28, I would field Kepa as he is at home against Everton. And then I would bench boost in game week 29 to capitalise on the doubles that both Kepa and Raya have. Now, quickly, why I'm going for Raya over Sanchez. I discussed previously why I like Sanchez. Going for Sanchez means that end of the day, you have to bench one of your goalkeepers. So when we get to game week 28, we need to remind ourselves that Brighton have a blank game week. So if you go for the combination of Kepa plus Sanchez, for example, you simply play Kepa and bench Sanchez because he has a blank. If you were to go for the other alternative and not have Sanchez as your goalkeeper and instead have a third Brighton asset in the outfield, similar to what I have on the draft here, it is almost impossible to field 11 players because you're going to have two Brighton midfielders most likely, and then a Brighton defender. So straight away, your bench is made up of Brighton assets. And then you're alongside that going to have other teams that blank in the shape of, just remind myself here, likely Man United assets in Marcus Rashford. So it's going to be very difficult for you to field a starting 11 in game week 28 alongside Haaland blanking as well. But Raya, I love him as an FPL option because he accumulates saves, bonus points, and I just rate the Brentford defence higher than the Brighton one. Now, moving into the defence, another reason why I prefer Raya as my goalkeeper is because Estupiñán has been confirmed available for game week 26. Now, there's been a lot of conversation about Estupiñán being far more superior than Dunk as an attacking option. I don't really see it personally. Now, Estupiñán, this is from game week game week 17 to now. His expected goals per 90 is 0.02. Dunks is 0.03. So realistically, there's nothing in either of them there. Expected assists, Estupiñán is averaging 0.14 per 90. Dunk 0.01. So based on expected goal involvement, Estupiñán is the better pick. But I don't think we're picking somebody here who's going to be absolutely rinsing it week in, week out from an expected assist or expected goal perspective. Both are at 4.7 million. Realistically, I'm going to opt for Estupiñán. He is a little bit better on the bonus points per 90 as well. Dunk currently at 0.23, Estupiñán at 0.61 per 90. Both same price. I think both have good minutes. For that very reason, I want to go for Estupiñán, which kind of forces my hand to have Raya as my goalkeeper. Other choices. Trippier, absolutely locked into my team. And also I'm going for Rico Henry. I don't really think going for Ben Mee is worth it for my team personally. My team value is not very good. So any opportunity I can make to kind of go for the cheaper option, I will. Argument to go for Pinnock as well, but Rico Henry I just slightly prefer. Again, no real attacking threat in either player in Pinnock or Henry. I'm just going for that option there that he may get forward from time to time. Zinchenko. This is another debate I have right now. I currently had Ben White, but no team value accumulated in him. I personally think Ben White is still a good option going forward. I don't necessarily think that Ben White is going to be majorly rotated. They have good fixtures coming up and don't necessarily need Tomiyasu in a 1v1 defensive duel. They're going to need Ben White for his progression and his overlapping runs. And I think Ben White's actually been unfortunate not to get any attacking returns recently. Now, Ben White versus Zinchenko versus Gabriel. That's really the debate that we're all having right now. So, post-World Cup, expected goals per 90. Gabriel is at 0.07. Zinchenko at 0.08. And White at 0.00. So there is nothing really for Ben White from an attacking perspective in terms of goal threat. Expected assists, Gabriel at 0 per 90, Zinchenko at 0.06, and Ben White at 0.05. So not really anything to discuss regarding Arsenal assets as an attacking option. On the bonus point line, Ben White is slightly leading the way, 0.45 per 90, Zinchenko at 0.31, and Gabriel at 0.27. So where would I rank these defenders? Well, as you can see, I have Zinchenko in my team, so naturally I am putting him as number one. I think if I was picking a defender between now and the end of the season, it would be Gabriel. I don't see any rotation in Gabriel apart from any sort of fatigue or injury. However, my current strategy means that I'm likely to sell my Arsenal defender in Game Week 29 to capitalise on the Man United assets, either a Dalot or a Luke Shaw transfer. For that very reason, for the few game weeks that we have over that period, I think I'd rather just go for Zinchenko. I don't see Arteta taking Zinchenko out for Tierney. I think Zinchenko is too important to the way that they build up play and the way that they actually, out of possession, actually get the ball back, because he's in that double pivot, picking up any loose balls in the midfield. So I think Zinchenko is a brilliant option. Because I'm only having for a short term, I'm happy to go for Zinchenko and just pray that he maybe racks up another goal or two, and he is 0.1 cheaper than Gabriel. Botman is the other defender just to cover me off for Game Week 28 with Newcastle's favourable fixture that they do have. Right, I'm rambling on. Moving into the midfield, as I know people are probably wondering what selections I've gone for. Out of the midfielders, Rashford and Saka are absolutely locked in the team. They are going absolutely nowhere. Now, the interesting debates. I've discussed about this. I think double Brighton midfield is just the way to go if you are wildcarded. We need to capitalise on the fixtures upcoming. They double in 27, they double in 29, and I think we can navigate Game Week 28 with these players in our team, even though they blank. So, the big debate right now, Mitoma, McAllister, March. I've got a slide on this, and we are going to come on into it in a minute. Right now, I have Mitoma and McAllister, but when I move on to the Brighton midfielders slide, we are going to deep dive in particular on that and likely convince myself otherwise. But that is the real debate right now, which two of the three. And the last spot that I've gone for is Odegaard. And this is the big one for me right now, because it's worth noting I haven't owned Odegaard all season. So I will be buying him at 7 million. I've accumulated no value in him, like a lot of managers maybe are in a similar position to myself. Again, Nketiah being ruled out, I think really helps Martinelli. We have to remember that later down the line, Gabriel Jesus is likely to be back in this Arsenal team. And if you said to me who is going to play more, Martinelli or Odegaard, I do think Odegaard will play more 90 minutes. Martinelli will probably play 60 or 70, and Trossard will come on for the last part of the game. However, when we are looking at the stats for these three midfielders, it is so hard to look beyond Martinelli. Post-World Cup, Saka, expected goals per 90, 0.31. Martinelli's is 0.29. Odegaard's 0.26. So, close between all of them. Saka first, Martinelli second, and Odegaard third. Expected assists per 90. Odegaard leads the way at 0.29. Martinelli at 0.19. And Saka at 0.18. And for those wondering about the bonus points, Odegaard is leading the way by quite a considerable distance, 0.92 per 90. Martinelli at 0.58 and Saka at 0.54. We need to remember Odegaard just hoovers up bonus points because he is such a creative force in this Arsenal team. So this is the real deliberation right now, what direction to go for in that Arsenal midfield, if any. I would love to go for Martinelli as the option and just stick with him, even if he does get substitutions now and then. I do think his underlying numbers are fantastic. And he is 0.5 million cheaper, which means it gives me other avenues in later game weeks if I need that money in the bank to go in different directions. So right now, I am on Odegaard, but I would not be surprised if I get swayed to go towards Martinelli later down the line. Again, guys, let me know your thoughts in the chat. I really don't think it is just like set in stone to go with Odegaard. It feels like Martinelli could be the upside pick, especially if you haven't got any value tied up in both Odegaard or Martinelli. Front line, nothing to discuss here. Kane, Tony, Haaland. I don't really need to explain this one. I understand people wanted to go without Erling Haaland. I get it. But I just think at home against Newcastle, there is definitely potential for him to pick up a few attack and returns, with Newcastle looking slightly less good, like strong at the back. And even in game week 27, Man City feature against Crystal Palace away. I think there's an opportunity there for Haaland. And then I will likely sell Haaland in game week 28 for Ollie Watkins, with then the intention of bringing him back in game week 30. So that's how the wildcard is currently looking, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the chat. I'd be really interested to know how many of these you own. I'm going to come back into the live chat, and then we're going to move on to a few other good slides, which I think are really going to help you guys out. And let me get some water down because I've been chatting far too long. Getting bored of my own voice. Lisa, I hope you're doing well. Hi, Nacho. Would you wildcard or just do Nketiah to Tony? Kepa, Pope, so you've got the coverage there. White, Trippier, Ake, Tarkowski, Castagne. You've got Leicester coverage, which is good. Salah, Matoma, Martinelli, Rashford, Andreas, and Nketiah. Okay, I think you're in a position right now where I don't think a wildcard is essential for your team. Game week 28 is going to be the problem for you later down the line. It is worth noting. Remember, Ake will blank for you. Andreas will blank. Nketiah is likely to be out of the team by then. Haaland will blank. Rashford will blank. If you can navigate game week 28, then I think it's okay. You could, as an option as well, use your wildcard in game week 28. So I don't think I would rush the wildcard in your situation here. I think you could easily field a team for game week 26 and game week 27 to capitalise. Do the Nketiah to Tony move. I really do like that. And then you could also bring in, if you really want to, another doubler in game week 27. I think you're good without a wildcard this week. Is Tony to Darwin? Apologies. Is Darwin to Tony and Mahrez to March / Matoma for a -4 worth it? I want to get me in the following game week. Again, I don't know your kind of whole team, and I don't know whether the wildcard is a temptation for you. But in terms of those moves, I like him. I do like him. Do I think Darwin to Tony is essential this week? Not really. Darwin Núñez posts such good numbers week in, week out. Man United have had so many fixtures. I don't think they're going to be absolutely at their best. And it is at Anfield as well. So I don't think the Tony move is desperate for you this week if you didn't want to make the -4. I think Mahrez to March or Matoma is okay because obviously in that situation, we don't know whether Mahrez is actually going to play with Phil Foden having a few very good performances, and Grealish looking like the left side is basically his. So I like the moves, and I don't even think you have to make the Darwin to Tony move if you don't want to make it this week. Tony or Watkins, for me, it's going to be Tony. I think he's got a great fixture at home against Fulham. The double in 27 is great. And importantly, he plays in game week 28, which was previously going to be a blank for Brentford. But I understand the love for Watkins. He's had 5 goals and 1 assist in his last 5 league games. I can't knock him at all. I think he's a great pick. Bringing me or Rico Henry because of James's injury. I'm currently going for Rico Henry. The personal opinion is I'm struggling right now for team value. So any opportunity I can get to make small changes to my team and save some cash, I will do that. Now, in regards to the underlying numbers for Brentford assets, if you give me 2 seconds, this won't come up on your slide. I do apologise, but I can just give you a bit of a rundown on the underlying numbers for both Ben Mee and Rico Henry since the restart of the World Cup. So just to give you a bit of an idea here on how they are posting their numbers, and I'll get also Pinnock as well for you. So Since the World Cup, it is worth noting, game week 17 onwards, per 90 minutes, expected goals, me at 0.04, Rico Henry at 0.07, and Pinnock at 0.10. So Pinnock's actually leading the way, and he is the cheapest at 4.4 million. And expected assists, me is at 0 per 90, Henry at 0.08, and Pinnock at 0.02. So basically, Henry is much more of a well-rounded asset from a goal threat and attacking creation perspective. Pinnock offers a slightly more goal threat from set pieces, but again, it is worth noting they're so minuscule. I'm not sitting here thinking one of these are going to rack up 3 or 4 goals in the next 3 or 4 game weeks. They're such fine margins. One of these easily could score from a set piece because Brentford are good from set pieces, but I don't think there's enough here to think that me is worth the extra money over Henry or Pinnock. And then it just comes down to your personal preference. Based on bonus points, because again, we need to remember that bonus points are super important when we are considering FPL options. Pinnock is down per 90, 0.13. I just don't think he has that kind of passing tiers and creation in his game to necessarily get him up there. Henry leads the way at 0.29 per 90. Ben Mee at 0.25. So based on the numbers, I can't really justify going for Ben Mee. I probably would go for Rico Henry as quite a well-rounded asset. And if you do need the money in the bank, then Pinnock might be a good option at 0.1 million cheaper. Chinese is saying, hey Nacho, great stream, really do appreciate it, thank you. Andrew, and you're definitely wildcarding here, or is this just a draft? No, Andrew, I definitely have activated my wildcard, and what you can see on screen here right now is what I am looking at in terms of my actual draft. The only deliberations I have right now is Odegaard versus Martinelli, and also the decision of which Brighton midfielders to go for. The front line is absolutely locked in. The goalkeepers are all but locked in, and also the defence, I feel like I am locked in. I just don't really want to absolutely confirm it on that one. Rio saying, do you think is Martinelli better than Odegaard until game week 29? I like Chilwell when James is injured. Yeah, so Rio, hopefully that discussion I had earlier about the numbers of Martinelli and Odegaard helped you out there. I think I'll probably answer that question for you. I think Martinelli is a fantastic option while Trossard remains the number 9 in this Arsenal team. I think with Odegaard, though, you know his minutes are going to be so good going forward. Could we see a situation where Nketiah does return in game week 27, or even Gabriel Jesus returns and we see some rotation in that front line with Martinelli having some sort of rotation? I'm not sure. Regarding Chilwell, I'm not huge on it. I think Cucurella could come in some situations where Chelsea want to go for a different kind of approach, where Cucurella adopts a bit more of an inverted fullback position. But as you mentioned, I would expect Chalobah to play as a right back in this Chelsea defence while James is out, meaning that there's going to be a lot more emphasis on that left flank in the Chelsea team. And naturally, if they're looking for attacking threat down the left, Chilwell is a good option, but I'm not desperate to bring him in myself. Okay, so while we're discussing, guys, please do drop your questions in the chat as I'll be answering them, obviously, throughout this live stream. We're not going to be doing it at the end. We're going to be doing it throughout. And again, if you are enjoying it, I see we have about 80 of us in the chat. If you can get us to 50 likes, I always do appreciate you guys. Always hook us up with the likes, and it is always much appreciated. It doesn't go unnoticed ever. So we are always grateful for the support that you give us every single week. So as I said, guys, I personally still haven't decided on these Brighton midfielders. So let me get a screen up for you guys, and you can have a little chat in the conversation, a little bit of a discussion in the live chat, which direction you would go in. Okay, so here we have the numbers of the Brighton midfielders since the World Cup. Again, I'm just looking at it since the World Cup, as I think there's been a lot of factors since then, and it's quite relevant for us to be acknowledging the numbers that we are seeing there. So a quick kind of overview, kind of like a macro view on the stats you can see here. March is the cheapest, McAllister is the most expensive, but realistically there's only 0.3 between the cheapest and the most expensive in McAllister. In regards to expected goals per 90, McAllister leads the way, March second and Mitoma third. Expected assists is March by absolutely miles. McAllister is second best at 0.09 and Mitoma at 0.08. And therefore, because of March posting such well-rounded stats, expected FPL points is in Solly March's favour. Predicted points for game week 26, McAllister leads the way. However, it is worth noting that March's fitness was a concern before these slides were created, and because of the algorithm having him down as an injury risk, his numbers are a lot lower. So if I just quickly go into the projected points on the Fantasy Football Fix site, I can just let you know if we have updated it or not. Again, the news only came out a couple of hours ago that he was fit and raring to go, so we may not have actually updated our algorithm, which it's worth noting we haven't just yet. But I would fully expect Solly March's numbers to be as good as McAllister's going into game week 26 on the news that he is now confirmed fit for this weekend. And based on projected points between now and game week 29, he is leading the way. So you can only imagine if March's projected points go up in game week 26, those figures that you can see at the bottom of your screen are going to only be considerably more than McAllister and Mitoma. Now, as I discussed, these numbers are based on game week 17 to now. There has been a slight change in the Brighton team, and I think a lot of people have been talking about it online about how the injury to Adam Lallana, who was being deployed as either how you'd view it, a number 10 or a progressive number 8, and then we were seeing a double pivot of Caicedo and McAllister. Because of the injury to Lallana, we have seen McAllister deployed higher up the pitch, with Pascal Gross playing alongside Caicedo as that double pivot, and also Gross being a bit more box-to-box in this Brighton team. It's meant that McAllister's numbers during game week 22 to now have actually really improved. So looking at the numbers, and again, it's a small sample size, so take it as you will, but it has been a positional change for McAllister, which I think it makes it relevant for our discussion. Expected goals per 90 over this period, game week 22 to game week 25, he's posted an expected goals of 0.84 per 90, which is really considerable, and an expected assist of 0.13. Now, when we compare that to the other assets, Mitoma has been really quiet over this period, 0.11 expected goals and 0.03 expected assists. So McAllister is dominating Mitoma over the last few game weeks, and Solly March continues to be really impressive with the numbers. 0.36 expected goals over that period, 0.66 expected assists. So he continues the trend even when McAllister is being deployed as a number 10 in this system. So looking at the numbers since the World Cup and over the last 3 game weeks, I think it's really difficult for us to ignore Solly March as an option. And because of that very reason, even though I don't have him in my current wildcard draft, I feel like it makes sense. He's the cheaper option. He has the highest projected points and the better underlying stats. I feel like it makes sense to have Solly March in our wildcard teams if you are considering it. We would have to see a considerable drop-off in his underlying stats and a real change in system for him to not be a viable FPL option. When it comes down to McAllister and Mitoma, I think it really depends on whether we see McAllister being deployed as a number 10 going forward. If he does continue with these numbers based on an underlying perspective, I think McAllister is a route to go for, and we know that he's also on penalties. However, if anybody's watched Brighton, you know Mitoma is just a firecracker and he's on it every game. And he's really one of those players that when you watch Brighton, you just want to own him. So underlying stats-wise, I think the way I'd rank these is Solly March number 1. If you can tell me that McAllister is going to play the next 3 game weeks, McAllister will be number 2. Mitoma would be number 3. However, the only thing I would say is this. I know Mitoma is going to play each and every game week and he'll be deployed on that left flank. And what we have seen with him is that he does cause so many problems for the opposition. I do think Mitoma's position is a lot more secure than McAllister's as a number 10. So Solly March number 1 and then a real coin flip between McAllister and Mitoma, which one you want to have in your team. Let me know your thoughts in the chat, guys. We're really interested to know which one you prefer out of the Brighton midfielders. Kelvin saying, Raya, Leno, Gabriel, Henry, Van Dijk, Trippier, Castagne, Salah, Saka, Rashford, Martinelli, Casemiro, Haaland, Tony, Mitrovic. Do I wildcard or stick with this squad? Okay, so you're in a position where you have some good players in here, but we need to remind ourselves that you have blanks for Leno, and this is in game week 26. Leno, Van Dijk, Salah, Casemiro, Haaland, and Mitrovic. So you're in a position where you're not well set for game week 28. Could you potentially navigate the next 2 game weeks and wildcard in game week 28? Yes, you could. But for me personally, you don't really have any coverage of Brighton assets. And for that reason, and because of the Liverpool assets you have, I probably would wildcard. But if you feel really bullish about Liverpool over the next 2 game weeks, I think you can navigate the next 2 and then wildcard in game week 28. My team is 90% like this wildcard template. Do I need to play the wildcard to go for the extra 10%? If your team is like this already, that I posted as my wildcard team, absolutely not. You can stick your team how it is. Don't go for the extra 10% and then maybe look to wildcard later down the line in game week 28, or even if you can go further, play it in game week 33, for example. There's definitely routes for you. I wouldn't be wildcarding if your team is basically the same as that. Which Brentford defenders to choose? Hopefully I did help you out there. I don't think Ben Mee justifies the additional 0.5 over Rico Henry, so I would rank them Henry number 1, Pinnock number 2, and Ben Mee number 3 from a personal perspective there. David saying currently first 11 is as follows: Kepa, Dalot, Dawson, Mings, Odegaard, Salah, Saka, Rashford, Haaland, Nketiah and Darwin, with Ward, Trippier, Andreas and Rico Lewis on the bench. Currently thinking of Andreas to March, Matoma, McAllister and Darwin to Tony, with Dawson to Stupid and next game week 3 hitting 28 and bench boost on Twitter. David, if I was in your situation, I probably personally would wildcard. That's my personal opinion, because I think you're in a situation where you're taking a lot of points hits to bring in players that realistically you could just bring in on your wildcard and you could address the situation that is accumulating all of these additional points. And even someone like Rico Lewis, he blanks in game week 28 and we really can't predict his upcoming game time. Hopefully I've covered that one off. Sujay saying Martinelli over Odegaard or going for all 3 Arsenal midfielders. I personally couldn't go for 3 Arsenal mids, but I understand those that want to go it. I discussed Odegaard versus Martinelli previously on the stream. For me, I imagine I am going to chicken out and go for Odegaard because I know his minutes are so good, but I really think Martinelli is an amazing option. And while Trossard is deployed as a number 9, I think that really does benefit Martinelli's potential in FPL. Garnet saying, thoughts on keeping Salah on wildcard? No, I would not be keeping. If you're a wildcarding, you don't put Salah in your wildcard. I just can't understand the justification on that one personally. Sujay saying Matoma seems to have gone wider in the past few weeks, but McAllister is on pens and in the number 10 role. Who are the best 2? Sujay, hopefully that did cover you off. Basically on the underlying stats, I probably would rank him as March number 1. I would then have March number 1, McAllister 2, Matoma 3. But I just feel like when I watch Matoma, there is so much potential there for him. For those that have jumped into the chat and obviously are wondering what my wildcard team looks like, let me pop it on screen for you right now. But it's worth mentioning, Solly March, based on what I have done and basically convinced myself I should be getting March into my team, I am probably going to replace either Matoma or McAllister with Solly March. It is worth noting. So there's already probably been a slight change to my wildcard team in that one there. But again, guys, please drop any questions that you do have in the chat and I will be going through them. I'm just making sure there's been no major change in the upcoming just generally in the community, as I don't want to be sat on this live stream and maybe there's been a leak of an injury to a player. So let me just quickly check to see here. I don't think there has been. No, I can't really see anything here, so I don't think there's any major decisions right now. So I don't think there's any major news to update you guys with in terms of the Twitter community. But hopefully, Ryan, I see you said, can you share your picture of your wildcard team? Hopefully that does help you out there. So we got another 20 minutes or so of this stream. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into some differentials that I think are worth considering for our FPL teams. And again, these players do apply for those that are wildcarding or even just considering a free transfer in their team. So we touched on Martinelli. I think he's a fantastic alternative to Odegaard if you are looking to go a different route with your wildcard teams. If you're looking to transfer him into your teams, I think he's still a good option as an alternative. Now, we haven't really discussed Maddison as an option. He has been confirmed fit for game week 26, it is worth noting. Now, whether that's Brendan Rodgers maybe just giving us a little bit of hope or not, I kind of think that if he's available, he's going to pick him. I think he's so integral to that Leicester team. When we saw that front three of Harvey Barnes, Maddison, Ian Nacho and Tete, it was the best that we've seen Leicester all season. And Maddison is such an important cog of that attacking aspect of Leicester's team. So looking at the numbers here, these are based off post-World Cup. And remember, Maddison hasn't played a lot of minutes since the World Cup. So obviously the numbers are a little bit skewed over this period. So Let me just see if I've got any more updated numbers on Maddison. I don't think I do. No. Okay, so we'll run off what we got on the screen here. Expected goals per 90, 0.44. Expected assists, 0.13. Really solid numbers for somebody in that Leicester team. And we've also got here expected FPL points per 90 at 5.88. Please do ignore the projected points at 2.5. Those were taken before we had the injury status on Maddison that he is likely to be available. I would expect those to shoot up both in game week 26 and over the next 4 game weeks that you can see is currently at 16.7. So would I be considering Maddison for my team? Personally, no, but that is very much team dependent. My squad value is so bad that I can't afford to have both Saka and Maddison at their price ranges when I know I can get someone like Martinelli or Odegaard at 1 or 1.5 million cheaper. I think if I had accumulated a lot of value in my team, then Maddison becomes a conversation for me. But realistically, I can't see myself bringing in Maddison for my team. Now, why would people be considering him? Well, we need to remember that Leicester's upcoming fixtures are good. Southampton away, who have just lost against Grimsby, so it looks like a good fixture. He then has Chelsea at home in game week 27. However, if you are in a situation where you are wildcarding in game week 26, you will find game week 27 incredibly hard to play Maddison in your starting 11. And let me explain why. Just going to bring up the wildcard draft here. Okay, so if you have a wildcard draft similar to me here, but let's just say Odegaard becomes Maddison, okay? Game week 27. You got your goalkeeper. That doesn't influence the outfield positions. Brighton and Brentford both double, so you have to play a Stupinan and you'd have to play Rico Henry. And then we need to remind ourselves that there are some good single game weeks for other teams. So, for example, Newcastle at home against Wolves. So you're going to be playing Trippier. Straight away, you've got 3 of your defenders, and you're going to have to bench both Zinchenko and Botman because you want to play your attacking players. Remember, Odegaard in this situation is Maddison. Then you'll have to play Saka. You're going to have to play your Brighton midfielders because they double. Otherwise, why the hell did you buy these Brighton players? And I feel like you're going to have to play Rashford at home against Southampton. You'd be crazy not to. And then your front 3. Kane is at home against Southampton. You have to play him. Tony plays in a double. And Haaland is away against Crystal Palace. Again, if you're considering benching Haaland in game week 27 away against Crystal Palace, he shouldn't be in your wildcard team. He should be straight out of your team. Therefore, Maddison is so hard to start in your team. You basically have to play him over Rashford or Saka, and I really doubt you are going down that direction. So just a heads up, if you are considering Maddison for your team, he is likely to be benched in game week 27, and that same applies if you are going for someone like Odegaard. Now, after game week 27, Leicester have a good game week 28 fixture, and remember this is a blank for a lot of teams. He plays away against Brentford. Not the best, but still a fixture nonetheless. And then what I would argue is probably the best double in game week 29. Leicester have away against Crystal Palace and at home against Aston Villa. So I think Maddison is going to be a really popular transfer for managers in game week 29. And if you can get ahead of the curve and bring him in early doors, then I really do like him as an early move in your game week 26 wildcard teams. For me personally, though, it just isn't going to work. Now, quickly want to run through some underlying numbers for both Harvey Barnes and for Maddison, as I think it is worth a discussion there if you want to go for a Leicester option, but maybe a cheaper alternative. Now, in regards to the numbers for both Barnes and Maddison, they're quite tasty. Let me just get these up. So you've got the numbers here for Maddison on your screen. So again, we need to remember that Maddison has played 4 games over this period and Barnes has played 9. So the numbers that we're looking at Barnes are taking over a lot larger sample size, which means I think we can come to better conclusions regarding Barnes. Now, Barnes is 6.7 million, so he is a lot cheaper than Maddison. His XG is 0.31 per 90, and his expected assist is 0.09. So they're not better than Maddison's, but they're still really solid underlying numbers. And when we look at the bonus points, Barnes doesn't rack up. So I like Barnes if you want to go for a cheaper Leicester option, but Maddison is the one to go for if you are invested in that Leicester midfield. So guys, get your questions in the comments. I'll be answering them. We're going for another 15 minutes. I've discussed Martinelli in a lot of depth, so we're not going to cover that one off. Watkins, quickly. Incredibly hard to bring in Watkins into your wildcard team unless you are going without Haaland. If you're going no Haaland, Watkins is the one that you want to go for. A reminder of their fixtures coming up. Aston Villa at home against Palace in 26, away against West Ham in 27, at home to Bournemouth in game week 28. And a reminder, a lot of managers will be doing Haaland to Watkins in game week 28 to get rid of Haaland because he blanks and then has a tough fixture in game week 29. And then Watkins has a double away against Chelsea and away against Leicester. So again, if you want to get ahead of the curve, I like Watkins as a differential. I just think if you're going for Haaland, it's really tough to squeeze Watkins in because you're going to go Kane and you're most likely going to go Ivan Toney. But I love Watkins as a pick. And I'm almost gutted that Spurs have this fixture in game week 28, as Watkins definitely would have been a cheaper option into our wildcard teams. And I think he'd definitely do well over this period. So I'm conscious of the time, guys, so we're going to quickly come onto a screen which is keeper rotation, and then we can discuss some questions while this is on your screen. But this is looking at the Kepa plus Sanchez combination, which I think a lot of managers are looking at. The fixtures that are in green basically mean that you would start that goalkeeper in that specific game week. And a reminder that in game week 29 is going to be a popular bench boost for a lot of managers. So you probably would go for Kepa and Sanchez in that bench boost, which I think is really, really good as well. Paul is saying, if I'm correct, you have 9 players currently with that team for game week 28. Will you roll on 27 to bring in full 11? Paul, in regards to my team, I'd wildcard in game week 26. Then in game week 28, I would use a free transfer to sell Haaland to bring in Watkins for that great home fixture against Bournemouth. And then I'll probably just go with 10 players. We need to remember that sometimes the quality of the players is better than the quantity. There will be some managers out there that have 11 players in game week 28. However, looking at the fixtures of game week 28, that could be because a combination of, you might have Patterson, Tarkowski, Bueno at Wolves. Realistically, I would rather have 10 players of huge quality rather than 11 of players that really, really aren't ones that I want to own. So I'm happy to roll out 10 players in game week 28, especially with one of those being Watkins at home against Bournemouth. So I think that's going to be a brilliant team pick. Gabriel versus Zinchenko is my last debate. I still don't think Zinchenko would get the minutes and may not even start some Premier League games where Europa is back. Alex is a really good point, but as I discussed, for my personal strategy, I'm looking to sell an Arsenal defender in game week 29 to bring in a Man United defender that doubles in that 29 for my bench boost. Therefore, I only need Arsenal for 26, 27 and 28. Do I anticipate Zinchenko getting rotated in those games? No, I don't. And because of that very reason, I think Zinchenko is a really nice option in our wildcard teams. Just covering off any other big questions. Sujay saying, cuz missing out on Haaland with 2 to 3 and then regretting. I don't know what that means, Sujay, so maybe repeat that in the comment section. I can't really decipher that one. I do apologise, buddy. Luke Grayson. Oh yeah, and Cheeks is saying, like the stream if you are enjoying it, guys. I really do appreciate you guys being on the stream, obviously on a busy Friday night. And if you can, drop a like, it'd be massively appreciated. Luke is saying, start Tarkowski. Oh, sorry, you got a question before. Kepa, Tarkowski, Ake, White, Martinelli, Saka, Mahrez, Rashford, Haaland, Kane, Nunes, bench, Trippier, Shaw, Andreas. Should I roll the transfer? I think you can roll the transfer, absolutely. I don't think you need to rush into other players. Darwin at home against Man United, I think, could be one of those crazy sort of tempo games, which would definitely suit Darwin Núñez. So if you're sat there and you're looking at your team and not really getting any FOMO about Brighton or Brentford assets, and I definitely think you could roll your transfer there for sure. Start Tarkowski away against Forest or Trippier away against City. I'd probably back Tarkowski. I would expect Newcastle to concede against Man City. If you could get 2, which would you get? Mitoma, March, or McAllister? I would recommend probably rewinding the live stream, as I did a bit of a deep dive on the Brighton assets. But right now, at the time of recording, I probably would rank them March number 1, McAllister number 2, and Mitoma number 3. But that is it's dependent on McAllister playing as a number 10 consistently over this period. Thoughts on Ward-Prowse? Not really a consideration for me while Southampton looks so poor right now. Alex is saying, planning 28 is Haaland and Mitoma to Watkins, and Maddison gives 11 and 28. Odegaard to Bruno, 29 and bench boost. Alex, absolutely love that plan. I think that's a great plan. And Ryan saying, he said that March and McAllister are his favourites. Okay, thank you very much for clarifying that, Ryan, about what I said earlier. Thank you, buddy. Sujay saying, caps the options on Saka and going with template Haaland, because missing out on Haaland for 2 to 3 and then regretted. I think Saka is a fantastic option this game week for captaincy. I haven't actually got a captaincy slide, but what I'm going to do here is put the projected points up for the players this week. So you can see here, Oh, well, I do apologise. This is a different graphic. This is a graphic for projected points between game week 26 and game week 29. I'm not going to go through it because it is a lot of information to digest and we've only got another 5 minutes on the stream. But I think what you are reading is basically what I'm just going to repeat. So you can kind of digest this and look at the players that really stand out for you. Importantly, the likes of Henry do come out on top for defenders, which is really good for those that are considering it. Odegaard comes out on top over Martinelli. But again, is that worth the money over him? Is that discussion? So, guys, digest that, what you can see on the screen there. I would kind of just be repeating what is on the screen. I'm going to cover off some more questions. I think that's more important than me duplicating what you can see on your screens here. So hopefully you do appreciate that. So, captaincy. This game week, Saka is on top of Haaland for game week 26 based on projected points. So if you are fully based on our projected points, then Saka is the route to go for. I always prefer captaining a midfielder because, of course, they have an extra point for a goal and an extra point for a clean sheet. Saka is on absolute flames right now, and obviously from a fixture perspective, he has a lot better fixture at home against Bournemouth. But we need to remember, Haaland at home is an absolute monster, and I do think that he could score any place, anytime against any team. But right now, if I was to force my hand and put the captaincy on somebody, it probably would be on Saka as we speak. Luke saying, would you recommend wildcard in my team this week for game week 29? Luke, I would need to remind myself about your team. Okay, so regarding your team, you don't have any Brighton assets. You don't have any Brentford assets. You have a couple of Liverpool assets in the shape of Núñez, and you also have problems in your team regarding minutes in the shape of Andreas Pereira, as he doesn't play in game week 28. So I don't think you're forcing your hand, but my team, it was kind of close to yours, and I decided to wildcard. The good thing for your team is you have Kane already, and that could be a factor for you. So look, I'm not going to sit here and say you need to wildcard at all. I think you could hold off, and if you feel confident about your team, then go for it. I think the big factor is how much do you rate the Brighton and Brentford assets, as you are very much lacking in that department right now. But you have Kane, which is really important, and why it might not be a deliberation for you this week. Alex, does your 29 team have Bruno and Maddison in it? I'm definitely going to be bringing in Bruno. And if I have the funds available and it works for my team, I will be bringing in Maddison as well. Yes, absolutely. If not wildcard this game week, you prefer game week 29 or later to play it? I still have the free hit as well. I think a game week 28 wildcard is definitely viable as well. But yes, game week 29, game week 33, all these options are available to you. I think when you do go for this strategy, you just need to be a bit more flexible and understand what happens in game week 26 and 27. Could get some injuries, might dictate how early or late to play your wildcard. And Ryan's saying, is it worth keeping Tony with all them drama and yellow cards? Why not just go for Mbeumo? It's a really good point, but I think realistically he's been so heavily transferred in, and he is the standout Brentford option on penalties. Yes, there could be a situation where he does get the ban, but then I think we have an easy sideways move to someone like Watkins in our team. For me personally, I understand that he gets 2 yellow cards. He is banned for 2 Premier League games. Yes, obviously the betting scandal is an issue, but for me, I'm happy to take that risk right now of Ivan Toney, knowing that I could easily free transfer him and downgrade him to Watkins if I need that avenue. Are you going short of a Maddison by the sounds of it? Alex, is a really good point. I haven't really planned too far in advance. It depends realistically how we are looking over that period, because you need to remember game week 29 is after an international break, so we may see some injuries crop up over that period. I wouldn't be against taking a points hit either in game week 29 to really double down on the assets that I want for that bench boost to really kind of justify the chip usage. And David's saying triple up on Arsenal with Saka, Odegaard and Martinelli. David, I'm not against it. For me personally, I can't really justify it, as I definitely want to keep Rashford and I want to get in on those Brighton assets because they double in 27 and 29. But if you are in a position where you don't want to have double Brighton, then I can't, not recommend Arsenal assets, as they are the best team in the league right now. It is worth noting. And Hashim saying Maddison or Bowen in game week 29. I would go for probably Maddison right now. I can trust him more in that Leicester team. But Bowen, between now and then, maybe on a bit of a purple patch, and we might see the best of Bowen that we saw last season. Then he might become an option. But what I've seen right now, I can't really go for Bowen over Maddison in 29. And Alex saying, would you take a hit in 29 to do Pinnock to Shaw? When that time comes, I think the answer will be a bit more clear for you. But yes, I would be against points hits in game week 29 if you are selling somebody who only has a single game week for someone that has a double. And Luke's saying, is there more big double game weeks in the later game weeks? We are anticipating there to be doubles in 34 and in 37, but they will not be as big as we first intended because of the cup upsets that we saw, meaning that blank game week 28 is a lot smaller than what we anticipated. If the games that we thought were going to win in the FA Cup happened, like Spurs winning, like Southampton winning, for example, we would have seen bigger double game weeks later on in the season. And for this very reason, it's why activating the wildcard earlier has become much more of a popular transfer, because the gains that you're making later on in the season don't feel like massive gains. Playing the wildcard now for the double game week 27 and the big double game week 29 feels like the opportunity to really capitalize on the wild card, as it is the most powerful chip in the game. Now, I'm just going to quickly put on my wildcard draft to conclude this live stream. So, as I said, players that are absolutely locked into my team are going to be the front three that you see on your screen: Saka, Rashford. I'm going to go Brighton double up, but I just don't know whether I'm going to go Mitoma, McAllister or March. Based on this live stream and the way that I've convinced myself, March has now jumped up from number 3 to number 1, because during this live stream, we did get the confirmation that March is available for game week 26. That's the only reason why I didn't have him previously in my wildcard draft. So March will be number 1, and then it's a deliberation between Mitoma and McAllister. And also the deliberation is Odegaard versus Martinelli. I would love to put Maddison in, but my team value is so poor, I can't really accommodate another 8 million midfielder. Odegaard currently is in the team, but Martinelli could easily come in at 0.5 million cheaper. And in the defence, basically, the 5 aren't necessarily locked, but the teams that they're selected from is locked. So Trippier is definitely in. It will be Zinchenko or Gabriel, so it will be an Arsenal defender. Henry is all but locked into my team. Estupiñán, I feel like, is the route to go for in that Brighton defence. And then also Botman. I like the double up in Newcastle defence to cover game week 28, where they have that favourable fixture, we need to remind ourselves, against Nottingham Forest away. I think that's a good fixture for Newcastle defenders. So I feel like this team's getting very close to where I want to be. And again, the goalkeepers, Kepa plus Raya. It could easily be Kepa plus Sanchez, as for those that have been just into the live stream, you will see that the keeper rotation for Kepa plus Sanchez really does work. But the reason why I like Raya is because he accumulates saves, means that he accumulates bonus points. And importantly, I like Estupiñán as a Brighton option rather than Sanchez. And for that very reason, I think I'd rather go down that route and have Estupiñán in my team. However, we need to remember going down that route means that you have less players in game week 28, as going for the Brighton outfield player means that it's another blank player. If you go for Sanchez, we know he blanks in game week 28, but you'll have a playing goalkeeper to play ahead of him. Therefore, you will have one additional outfield player that plays in game week 28. So that's all about your personal preference and how you want to build your team. For me, I feel like I am going to go for the Kepa plus Raya combination in my team. So guys, that is going to wrap up today's live stream. I really would love to sit here for another hour and go through wildcard plans, but we have to put a hard cap on 6:30 p.m. UK time. So I really do hope this stream has provided some value to you guys and kind of answered some of the headaches that you might have had going into it. For me, it already has helped me out, as I've decided to go for March as my number 1 Brighton asset. And then the other deliberation is going to be Mitoma versus McAllister, which again, I will be covering off. If you want to know my team going up into the deadline, you can follow me over on TikTok. I know it isn't just 16-year-old girls doing stuff on there. We do actually do content on there as well. So if you want to follow my personal team, head over to TikTok, FPL Fan. You can check it out. But again, I understand if you don't go on TikTok, as obviously it is a controversial platform. I will try and get it up on Twitter as well, so you can see my thumbnail, my username here, if you do want to check it out as well, if you are following my personal team. I really hope it's provided some value, guys, and I really do appreciate all of you being in on this stream. It means the world on a Friday evening that you take an hour out of your day to watch me discuss FPL and hopefully answer your questions, as that's the whole point of these live streams, is to really deep dive into the questions that you ask. I'd rather not do a live stream where you have to sit through the whole thing, me rambling, and then I answer your questions. I really understand that you guys have a lot of busy plans in your life, and Friday evenings in particular are probably the busiest of your week. So I would rather answer your questions in the moment so you can get on with your day. But for those that have stuck around, Ryan, for example, David, Rio, Cheekster, as always, really do appreciate you guys sticking around for this live stream and listen to me ramble on. Luke as well, Alex, Hashim, all you guys that have been around, I really do appreciate the familiar faces and also the new ones that have also jumped in on this particular live stream, as it obviously has been a popular one, being a wildcard stream. So thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Again, if you did enjoy it, please do drop a like on your way out, and if you haven't already, please do consider hitting that subscribe button on the channel. We have so many videos coming between now and the end of the season. It'd be great to have you on the journey over the last few months of the season. So guys, all that leaves me to say is take care, have a fantastic week from an FPL perspective, but more importantly, a fantastic week in general. Enjoy yourself, don't let FPL ruin your weekends, and I will catch you in the next video. Take care, guys. Cheers.